and it's a little chilly because it's early in the morning. And you meet some people and they're like, oh, hey, how many times have you done this race? And we're like, we've never done this race. In fact, we've never done a trail race. We've never done an ultra. And they said, why did you pick this one? And that's the first moment I went, uh-oh, this might be a little harder than when we thought it was.
Running 100 miles seems impossible, and maybe even kind of crazy. And it is, but we believe in big crazy dreams. That's why we ran 100 miles. It was such a life-changing experience for us, we decided to devote this podcast to preparing and inspiring you to run your first ultra race.
Are you ready to feel the highest highs and the lowest lows? Are you ready to do what you once thought was impossible? Are you ready for your trail to 100? Well, Jeff, we are so excited to bring you on, El Jefe, the big ass runner. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Man, I am so excited. I am thrilled and honored to be on Trail to 100. You guys are crushing it. Yeah, congratulations for your great success. And congratulations on the baby on the way. I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you. We're excited too.
Yeah, we're just getting ready for how life's going to change. And we're also wondering how running's going to change.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with training. It's already really different.
You're ultra runner, so you'll figure it out. You'll pivot. You'll find a way. I've got 4 kids of my own, plus a grandbaby, so you figure it out. But there's nothing better. You guys will love it.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for the reassurance.
So, Jeff, we want to hear a bit of your story. Now, you conduct your own podcast, The Big Ass Runner, and you talk to loads of people and asking them about their story. But we want to dive. It's now your time to share how you became an ultra runner. So first things first, though, where did running even start for you?
Yeah, the tables are turned here. Usually I'm asking Melody all the questions, and yeah, this is fun. Well, I am an unlikely trail runner. As you mentioned, I'm a Clydesdale. I'm 6'4", 220, sometimes more than that right now, a little bit more than that. And I was a basketball player in high school, and not a very good one at that. I was a JV level player. I remember my coach, who was very, he was a larger than life kind of guy, and he'd be watching me practice, and he'd see me running up and down the court. He'd be like, Harrell, unhook that U-Haul. Like, I was so slow going up and down the court. And, that hurt a little bit. It hurt my little feelings when I was 16 or whatever it was. But I'm very unlikely trail runner because I was a basketball player, and running was punishment. And running was, after practice, you run lines. We would line up for free throws. If you missed your free throw, you had to run, lap, that kind of stuff. So running was always punishment. And so I never enjoyed it. And so, post high school, going into college, I played pickup basketball, but I was never a runner. And then somewhere in my, I guess I was in my early 30s, had some friends, and they're like, hey, we're training for a marathon. I'm like, a marathon? That's like, I don't know, 26 miles or something crazy. And they're like, no, you can do it. We've done them before. And they weren't super athletic. They weren't, big runners. I didn't think, okay, no way I could be like these guys. I thought, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And this was kind of my first lesson in the importance of community and having people come alongside you, because they're like, hey, we'll meet up at White Rock Lake. There's a lake in the Dallas area. We run there. Come run with us. So I started doing that and started kind of liking it a little bit. So I did a half marathon for my first, I guess, official race. Did the White Rock Marathon at the time. That's what it was called. Now it's called the Dallas Marathon. And had an okay experience, did okay. But where the Big Ass Runner name actually came in was when I was going to go pick up my badge, or, you pick up your number at the, the convention or whatever, the expo. They handed me my number and it said Division Clydesdale. I'm like, Clydesdale? That's those big ass horses. I guess I'm a big ass runner, and that's where big started. So it has nothing to do with your derriere. It has nothing to do with anything other than I'm just a bigger runner. And so ran that marathon, and then after that, really nothing. people say, "Oh, did you really get the running bug?" I said, "Not really. It was just got that done. Thought about doing some other races and ended up not doing it. And then probably in my probably mid 40s started doing mud runs. Just something to do with friends, competitive. And so we do these mud runs, Spartans and did a Tough Mudder, all that. They're not ideal for Clydesdales. It's a lot of body weight stuff. And so I'm like struggling but I enjoyed, actually we would train on the trails for these mud runs. And I started enjoying just running on the trails. And so that's really where I started to develop a love for trail running, was training on these trails for mud runs. And I thought, can I do the running part and not the mud part? And so I, go to YouTube and start watching videos, and you go through through that black hole of all the videos that from Ginger
Oh
Runner and
boy.
Billy Yang. And that's where I got the bug. That's where I'm like, this is awesome. I just resonated with the community. I resonated with the fact that you didn't have to go fast, because we've already established I was not a fast runner. Had a U-Haul connected to me apparently. And that's where I really fell in love with this idea of trail running and ultra running.
So as you're talking about these videos, because I think a lot of people can relate, these YouTube videos, I think, have hooked a lot of people on their first ultras. What, like, can you think of a specific video and what about it and like what part of it triggered you to be like, all right, I think I'm actually going to do that?
It was probably a Ginger Runner video, and I think it was Cascade 50 or something like that. And it just had a series of waterfalls. And I thought, wow, you can do a race and have a waterfall. You take a shower midway through. It's amazing. It was probably that. And I think more than anything, though, it was a couple of things. One, I'm in my mid 50s now. So I'm later in life, not really later in life. I'm, midlife. Let's just say midlife.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't think of what other thing you can do besides the trail race where you can challenge yourself, where you can get those competitive butterflies, where you can train for something, where you put in the hours and you can do it, at night, in the morning, whenever you can work it into your schedule. Like, what else can you do to really challenge yourself in that way? So I think that's one thing I saw when I watched these videos. You see all different ages and shapes and sizes and colors, and it's a community. And there's not this one look, although a lot of the super elite people look like runners, but most everybody else just looks like everyday folks. And I resonated with that. And then I think the other thing was just seeing the beauty of nature and being able to enjoy that and think of the race as not, when I did my marathon, I just remember counting down the miles. When are we ever going to get to the finish? When it's the aid station was an orange and some Gatorade, right? Trail running's so different. It's the journey is part of the joy. And so for me, seeing that part of it, the aid stations and the community, and just felt like a festival. Growing up, my dad was big into bluegrass, and so he would go to these bluegrass festivals. You roast a pig and you're out picking and grinning and that sort of thing. And
So fun.
it just felt like that. Like, it felt like this fun community. It's not about the speed. It's not about the finish line. It's more about the destination. And that's what I think I fell in love with.
I want to say ditto to everything you're saying. I'm like, yes, I feel this. Trail running is amazing. So I love that your story is, "Oh, I ran some road races and didn't really do anything for me. But then I started running on the trail, and then I was like, this is amazing." It's trail running versus road running, completely different. Trail running is where it's at. We've kind of turned into trail running snobs. We make fun of all the road
Well,
runners.
my last injury that I had happened after a 20-mile road run. And after that, I swore roads off. I said, I blame the road for the injury.
Yeah. Well, and I will say too, I'm very jelly of you guys because you're in Utah where
Yes.
you've got a lot of options. I'm in North Dallas, not as many options. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'm on day 2 of a 30-day run streak. I ran, in my neighborhood, which is fine. It's fine for these shorter ones, but man, get me out on the trails.
Mhm.
Yeah, any day of the week. But yeah, I'm very jealous of what you guys have there in Utah. And maybe someday I'll have to find my way out to Colorado, Utah, northern New Mexico. Who knows? But yeah, where they have a little bit more abundant trails. And we have more than you would think here, but it's still not as prevalent as you guys have for sure.
Yeah, we're pretty spoiled here in Utah. Sometimes we talk about leaving and we're like, but we just can't leave these mountains. You'll have to sign up for a race here sometime.
I will for sure.
So, Jeff, take us through your first ultra marathon. Which one was it? Give us the conditions. Give us your report on how that went down.
Absolutely. Well, like I told you, I was doing OCR races, mud runs, and started to do the trails. And I was probably 46, 47, 48 years old. 50 is a big milestone for most people. And I thought, it'd be cool is if I did a 50K on my 50th birthday. How cool would that be? And so that was the first kind of spark of, do I think I can do it? Having run a road marathon, I thought I could do it, but I was 30 when I did my road marathon, and now I'm,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
49, and I thought, wow, I think I can do this. I've got a great community. I can do the training, and so I'm like, let's do it. And then I've got a friend who's on the show. His name's Tim. We call him Timmy Time. He's just one of those guys, like, he's a good athlete and he would do mud runs as well. And he really wasn't doing much trail running. And I was talking to him one day. I said, I really think I want to do this 50K. He said, I'll do it with you. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And
Heck
so
yeah.
to answer your question about which one, I don't know exactly how we landed on Bandera, but Bandera, as you guys may know, is a golden ticket race. It's down just in the hill country northwest of San Antonio. Very different than what we have here in North Dallas, North Texas. A lot of hills, a lot of rocks, more probably what you guys are used to. Not quite the elevation, but there's more elevation than you might think. But I sort of ignored all that part of it. I just thought, hey, it's going to be fun. It's pretty. It's at this great park. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. And I knew it was a golden ticket race. So I knew it was well run, good racing company. I think to me, that's so important. So we picked Bandera. And this happens I think it's the first weekend of the year in January. So it's technically, I'm still 49. So my birthday's in February. So it's a month away. I'm like, it's close enough. So we drive down there. It's about a 5-6 hour drive. And we're super excited. Again, we've never done an ultra, never really done a trail race of any kind. And we get up early in the morning and, we got all our gear on that we, figure out what to wear when watching videos and all that. And we're so nervous. And both of us are pretty gregarious. We're both Enneagram 7s. And so we're like, one of our goals was to meet as many people as we could, because we knew that was part of trail running. So we're meeting people. Everyone's kind of nervous. You're at the start line. You know how it is. It's still dark. It's a little chilly because it's early in the morning. And you meet some people and they're like, oh, hey, how many times have you done this race? And we're like, we've never done this race. In fact, we've never done a trail race. We've never done an ultra. And they said, why did you pick this one? And that's the first moment I went, uh-oh.
That's a little discouraging.
Yeah, this might be a little harder than we thought it was. But it was great. We had a great time. We both finished. Tim was very kind. He'd wait for me at each of the aid stations. Eventually, I'm like, please just run your race. Keep going. We both finished. It was awesome. And I think the race at the time was on a Sunday. It's now on a Saturday, because we got in his truck right after the race. He had to wait for me a couple hours for me to finish. Got in his truck, drove 5 hours back home. And I remember we stopped somewhere along the way at Whataburger. If you guys haven't had Whataburger, it's big in here in Texas. It's delicious.
Oh.
I couldn't walk. You guys know the ultra walk after an ultra where you're just, oh my gosh. And so that was my first ultra. And it's one of those things, and I know you guys know this too. During the race, you're like, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? If I kick another rock, I'm going to hurt somebody, probably myself. then you cross the finish line. Oh, and one thing I'll add about Bandera, everyone's you got your watch. You kind of know where you are. So I'm, running along, and I'm pretty close to the end. I'm probably like 5 miles from the finish. And I'm running towards, you can hear the finish line. You can hear the music and the people cheering. And you're like, oh my goodness. Maybe my watch just must be off. I might be right there. I don't have 5 more miles. And you're going, and all of a sudden it turns right. No, I've got 5 more miles. It's like the cruelest thing. And so 5 miles later, I cross the finish line. I'm sure you guys have thought this too. This is the last ultra I'm ever doing.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, you're on ultra sign up. Okay, what's the next race? What's the next one? Oh yeah, it was a great experience.
Man, that's rude to have you run past the finish line.
It
like
is,
that.
and it's like, at least keep it down. Like don't have all this fun while I'm still struggling on the race. Yeah, just
You're
you
like,
could hear the music. So once you know that, though, it was fine. But yeah, I got to know the race director, Chris McWaters, and I give him a hard time about that. Like you gotta, yeah. So it's cruel. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is.
You always curse the race director's name, right?
Yep.
Curse you.
For sure.
So that's pretty good. So your first ultra, it went pretty well then. I mean, it sounds like it was hard. You couldn't walk afterwards, but it wasn't so traumatic that you never signed up for another race again. So after this race, what was the next step for you?
I think after you do a 50K, then you start to evaluate, do I want to do something longer than a 50K? And in the trail running world, there's something about a belt buckle, and you have to kind of go through that mental process of, is that something I aspire to do? Because training for a 50 is difficult, right? If training for a 50 is hard, and then you go, can I do that twice? Can I actually? And at the time, you're like, there's no way I could have done that again. Your mind just figures it out. But I had to decide, is a 100K something that I want to do? And at the time, it was not. And I don't know exactly why. I think it's because my running kind of friend group was not interested in doing 100Ks. So we kind of stayed at the 50K level. We did several more 50Ks. And then we started, and I mentioned Bandera. We did Bandera a couple of times, and I got to know the race director. And then he's like, hey, if you guys ever wanted to run an aid station, we would love for you to do that. And I'm like, and this is what I love too about trail running is you've got the runners, you've got the crew, and you've got the aid station workers. And it's this system that if you don't have any of those pieces, it doesn't work. And just having benefited from so many aid stations, and I don't know how many PB&Js I'd had, and Pringles and Oreo cookies, I thought maybe it'd be really cool to do an aid station. So it was actually 2021. So it was just after COVID had hit. COVID hit in early 20. So this was early 2021. It was one of the very first in-person races. So people flew in from all over the place, and we ran an aid station called Chapas, which, we were the big ass runners. So Chapas is actually a barn, which makes total sense. Put the Clydesdales in the barn, but you actually run through this barn. And I remember when I did the 50K, it's at mile 22.9. So you're 9 miles from the finish. So it's a very significant aid station because you're so close to the finish line. And if you're doing the 100K, then it's at mile 52 or whatever. And so they put us in the barn, and we had the biggest blast running that aid station. So we've done that now for 3 years running. And in fact, we're doing it again next year. And we're kind of doing a big ass runner meetup at Bandera. Come serve with us at the aid station. If you've never done an aid station, do that. So we started doing 50K, started serving, started to get a little bit more in the community. And then I don't know what it was, Jacob, that spoke to me, but for some reason, I'm like, I feel now like I do want to do 100K. I don't know what it was. Maybe I just ate something. Didn't sit right. I don't know what it was. But I just decided I wanted to do 100K. And so started researching, and I knew I wanted to do something early in the year, and found the Black Canyon 100, Black Canyon Ultras. So there's a 100 on Saturday and a 60 on Sunday. And what I loved about two things, three things actually. First, it was in Arizona, and I always wanted to do a race in Arizona. Two, I knew Aravaipa put it on. They're a really well known, great race company. And three, it was point to point. So because I thought if I'm going to do 100K, I don't want to do a bunch of loops. I don't want to do a down and back. I just want to point to points. Or it's harder on your crew. I learned that
Yes.
the hard way, but they're so much fun because you just go and you just keep going. You just keep going until the finish line. So much fun. So at some point, I just decided, hey, I want to do 100K in Black Canyon, and did that in February of not this year, but last year. So it was a great experience.
So I'm always curious when you double up your distance, right? 50K was the longest you've gone up to that point. So you doubled it. How much harder was 100K compared to a 50K?
It's a good question because there's so many variables at stake. And this particular race is in February, but it was unseasonably warm. It had gotten up to in the 80s. And so at some point, yeah, if in Arizona, 80 is different than Texas 80, and because there's no humidity, so you're like everything just dries, and so you're constantly just pouring water over yourself, and because your body can't cool down when there's no water.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, you just your body or your mind just somehow figures it out. So it didn't feel twice as hard. It's just sort of like if I'm going out for a 3-mile run, at the end of it, I'm like, oh man, that was tough. 7-mile runs, like the same thing. Your mind and your body just sort of adjusts. And so for me, I found that it was hard. It was harder than a 50, but was it twice as hard? Absolutely not. And part of it too was the mindset of, I'm going to hike a lot of this. I'm going to hike through the night. I'd never done a night race before. So that's it's a different thing. It's almost like there were different seasons of this race. The first season was, you start this little high school track, you do a loop around the track, and then you start running, and that felt like a normal 50K. And then, as the day wears on and it starts to get dark, and then you're getting your poles out, that feels like a different season. So now you're Mr. Hiker guy, and I've done a lot of hiking with a weight vest. So I was like, oh, this is fun. So it was different. And, I saw my wife, who was my crew, every once in a while. So that was fun. And so it was just a different experience than in any 50K I'd done. So for me, it was not twice. Was it hard? Sure. Was it twice as hard? Absolutely not. But I think I had such a good plan going into it, and I'd done the weight vest training, and I had a good coach. And, I'd say, if you're thinking about doing 100K, get a coach, because they have the experience, the expertise. You can find a training plan somewhere, but how to implement it, the questions that you have, how to customize it for you, how to customize it for that race, how to customize it for your strengths and weaknesses, you can't find that on the internet. So hire a coach. And so I had a good plan. And I think that gave me confidence. And so it was just executing it. And also I knew I'm going to be out here for probably 18 to 20 hours. And so I'm just going to have, this is an experience. And that's what it felt like. And people were like, how could you be out there for 18 hours? Like, you just do it and you enjoy it. You just, you take each phase as they come, and you just enjoy each of the different seasons that you go through. It's like, you hear about it's a life in a day kind of a thing. It's true. It's like you have all these different ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and it's a lot of fun.
Exactly. So I want to ask you a few questions, build off of a few of the things that you said. The first thing that I want to say is, I know why you wanted to finally do 100K. It's because you did the aid station. That's going to get you every single time. You go aid station 100-mile race, and the next thing you know, you're signing up for a 100-mile race. Nothing hooks you faster than doing an aid station at a race.
You're probably right.
So I wanted to ask, so this is your first time hiking through the night. So one question I have is, how was that? How was it hiking through the night? How did you prepare? Tell us a little bit about that.
It was different. It was a little scary. I had done a night race to prepare for it because running at night is different, as you guys know, than running during the day. So I had done some of that, and it was later in the race. So I knew at that point I probably wouldn't be doing a lot of running anyway. So I just got my mindset towards hike as fast as you can, and got the poles out, got the jacket on, because it's cooler then. Because we went from 81 to in the 50s, and by the time I think we finished, it was in the 40s. So there's a lot of variation. But I gotta say, it was probably one of my most memorable times on the trail because I'm out in the middle of Arizona. They've got those huge cactus, and I always forget the name of them, but they're like stories tall. They're huge. The moon was out, so the moonlight shone on these huge cactus, and I'm walking in the middle. I don't know where I am in the world. Like, I know I'm in Arizona, but that's about it. I have no idea. I don't know who, and there's really no one around me. You could see some lights, in the distance, so you kind of knew you're headed the right way. But I remember distinctly thinking, when in the world would I ever experience this very moment? Be on this trail in the middle of nowhere, seeing the moonlight cast this cool shadow on this incredible cactus. And like, it was one of those, like, you take a picture in your mind, and that picture will be with you the rest of your life. So for me, it was a magical time. It was a little scary at times because like, you don't. I just
Yeah.
remember it was well marked, but until you see that marker, you're kind of like, "Am I in the right place? Am I in the okay? There's a marker. Good, good, good." Because it's just with a lot of people around, and so, but it was amazing. I've told people, if you can do a race like that, do it, because there's some people who are like, hey, races are commercialized. Well, races are incredible because they give you the structure and the ability to go on these trails that you probably wouldn't go on your own during times of the night that you wouldn't be out there by yourself. It's amazing. And so that was just a marker for me. I'll never forget that moment of hiking through Arizona in the middle of the night with that moonlight, those huge cactus that I need to learn the name of. It was amazing.
The ones in the movies.
Exactly.
I love what you share there, though, but I think that's a huge thing of what has kept me in ultra running. As you share that, I recall, like, it brings back memories of my own. Even like, I was just volunteering at a race a month ago, and my shift ended at 2 a.m. and so I had to come down off the mountain at 2 a.m. and it's a snowy trail, and all the pines are covered in snow, and I'm just going down this trail by myself. And like, I just thought to myself the same thing. Like, if I didn't do this, when would I have ever experienced this? Like, it was just gorgeous, coming down in the middle of the night off of this snowy mountain. And looking back, it's like, I mean, as I look back at that moment, it's like ultra running honestly gives you, like, it just helps you to live life to the fullest. Like, go do these things that you don't normally do, and just enjoy it and soak it in.
Amen.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I am also impressed at your mindset because when I asked you about running through the night, I was kind of expecting, oh, it was so hard, it was miserable. And I love that instead of that being the response was, it was amazing, it was beautiful. And it seems like, I'm sure it was really hard. It just sounds like instead of focusing on the negative in that moment, you're able to focus on the positive and be grateful for where you're at and what you were doing. And I feel like that's a really powerful tool for anyone who's running through the night, for anyone who is struggling on a run or in a race. Focus on the positive. Look around you. Be grateful for where you're at and what you're able to do, and remember that the pain isn't going to last.
Yeah, and I think having the podcast helps me because I hear stories. We share a lot of stories in the podcast, and I think it gives you an appreciation for those moments. Because if you're just trying to get through it like a road race, if you're just trying to get through it, you're probably just going to fly right by it and not even notice it. But if you're in it for the journey, if you're in it for the experience, you're going to stop and take notice. At least I did. So I think Yeah, for me, it was, I don't think there's any choice but just go, look at the grandeur of this around me, and how could I not appreciate this?
I love it. And maybe that's just what people like us say because we're not fast. So it's just easy to be like, it's just easy to say, enjoy the journey.
That's a great point. That is, yeah, I think you've actually nailed it with that melody.
Making us feel better about our speed.
That's right.
No, it's true though. It's true though. Enjoying the journey is important.
So, Jeff, we're going to call you an experienced ultra runner now, okay? So, my question is, so you've got a few races under your belt, a few ultras under your belt. What were some rookie mistakes that you made early on that you've now adjusted? Because now, from what we understand, you are training for a 100-miler next year, right?
That's correct.
So, man, things just keep getting bigger and more real. So, what are some of those mistakes that you made early on that you have adjusted and changed more and that you're implementing into your training and your plans moving forward?
Unfortunately, a lot of my mistakes revolve around poop, for lack of a better word.
That sounds about right.
I love it.
Yeah, I remember one of my first, I think it was, I'd already done the 50, and I always like my biggest fear, I'll be honest, my biggest fear doing a 50K was having to poop out on the trail. Like that was my biggest fear. Whatever I said before was my biggest fear is actually a lie. It was pooping on the trail.
All
And
right.
for some reason, my body early on, and I'll talk about how it's changed, but early on, you get up and you're like, okay, there's almost this like panic. I've got to poop. I've got to poop before this race. If I don't poop before this race, it's going to get bad. And I have to poop on the trail. And I don't want to poop on the trail. And so you try to eat, some fiber and get it out, whatever. And then my body would decide about 30 minutes before a race to shut down. Like it's closed for business. No more pooping. Like for the next 8 hours, nothing's happening. And that was my first couple of races. And so then when that was fine, once she kind of understood that was fine, when she kind of got over the anxiety and all that. Well, something happened. So my friend Scott and I were doing Bandera. It was actually Bandera, but we were doing the 25K. So this is a couple of years after the first 50K. And our friend Timmy Tom was doing the 50. So he's gone. He's off doing the 50K. We're sitting in the truck, and Scott tends to cramp a lot. I don't so much, but I'd heard that pickle juice was really good for cramps. And so I'm like, Scott, we got to get a pickle. So we stopped at a convenience store and we got a Big Papa. I don't know if you guys know what a Big Papa is. And in the South here, it's a big, huge pickle in a bag of juice, right? It's just a big, disgusting pickle in a bag of juice.
So American.
Doesn't even need to be refrigerated.
No, optional. So we decide, we're in the truck. We're like, okay, well, we gotta start getting some of this pickle in us because we don't want to cramp. It was a warm day, even though it was early January in Texas. It could be warm still. And what we should have done is just drank a little of the pickle juice, and that would have been sufficient. But the Big Papa was staring at us, and it's like so we both started like eating a little bit of this Big Papa. And before you know it, we're like halfway down. We each have our own, and we'd eaten half of this huge pickle. And we sort of looked at each other like, I think we just made a big mistake. And fortunately for me, maybe 5 minutes later, so it's probably a half hour before the race, about 5 minutes after Big Papa experience, Big Papa came a-calling.
Oh,
And so
no.
I ran to the porta potty because we hadn't started the race yet. So I go to the porta potty, and my body's like, I'm open for business now. It's just happening. But I had the porta potty, so I took care of my business. Well, that didn't happen for Scott. Scott,
Oh no.
he said, I guess my body shut down. So we start the race, and he's a lot faster than me. So he takes off. I'm like, I'm going to see Scott at the finish line. So I'm running along, mile 2, mile 3, and all of a sudden, Scott comes up from behind me and like passes me. He's like, Clydesdale, I'm like, and then I went, oh, Big Papa, and he gave me a big thumbs up. So Big Papa came a-calling for Scott. After he started the race, he had to divert off the trail. And
Oh,
mind you,
no.
Bandera is like rocks in little shrubs. There's nowhere to hide. He had to take his red bandana. And anyway, so he had,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
bandana was sacrificed. It was a good calling for the bandera, for the bandana at Bandera. So what I learned was make sure you don't eat a big papa right before a race. The bigger lesson is make sure you think about nutrition, make sure you've eaten certain things. Melody, I've talked about this on the coaching corner. Don't try something new on race day. Make sure you've tried it before in your training. Make sure your body knows how to handle it. Don't pick up a convenience store pickle right before a race. That's probably one of my big. The other one I would say is, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm never gonna look at a big Papa pickle the same again.
Nor have I. I can tell you confidently, I've not had one since then. That's
I
okay.
bet.
The other thing I would say, and both of these don't sound real deep and intellectual, but that's just me. Don't buy shoes that are too similar in color. So I'm a Hoka guy, and I bought, I don't know what it is, but I buy the same kind of shades always. And so we go to Rocky Raccoon, and we're going to do, I think I'm doing the half marathon at Rocky. And we're getting all our gear on, we're going, and I get my shoes out. I've got 2 left shoes.
Like, oh no.
That is literally anyone's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Yes.
That I've never thought about that. I was like, what do you mean don't buy shoes that are too similar in color? But that's actually really good advice.
Or just pay more attention than I do. I don't know. Maybe the lesson, just pay attention. But yeah, fortunately, Hoka was the sponsor of that race, and they actually had it like a little loaner program going on. So they let me have my size 13 Hokas, and I was good to go. Close call, because honestly, I would not have been able to run. I didn't have any other shoes. So maybe the lessons like bring a backup pair as well. I don't know, but
yeah.
No, I think that's a great lesson.
Yeah, you weren't gonna try to do it barefoot then?
No. Oh, that would have been bad. I would have lasted about 30
wow,
feet.
that is lucky. That's awesome that you could get some loaner shoes.
Yeah. Wow. So be thorough with your gear and don't get gas station food before a race.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
You boil it down to it. That's it.
So one question: do you feel more confident pooping in the woods now? Do you feel like, is that still a fear?
Yes, still a fear. I think, I don't know if you ever get comfortable with that. I don't know if I'll ever get comfortable with it. I haven't done 100-miler, and I imagine I'll have to come to grips with it.
When you get really comfortable with it.
Yeah, 100K. I think I mentioned my body would shut down. That race, the Big Papa race, something in my body switched. And now, and again, I hate that I'm talking about poop the whole time. I'm so sorry.
We're ultra runners. We all
have to
get
have kids too, so you're going to learn all about poop when you have kids. Now my body decides, hey, let's get rid of everything. So now before a race, it's like, make sure you got the wet wipes handy because it's something about to happen. So I have not had that issue with the 100K, but my guess is the 100-miler is going to be a little different story.
Probably. I was going to say that's every runner's dream, to just get everything out before the run. And maybe we're taking it a little too far with the poo stories here, but it just made me think of Sally McRae, who did Badwater 135 last year. And I don't know if you know her story, but she won Badwater, but her guts were so messed up and she ended up having diarrhea the entire time. And she's on a road, there's no coverage, so she just hid behind her van. And let's just be real, that's just a part of ultra running.
And lean back on her husband.
She leaned back on her. That's true love right there.
I can't get over that.
Wow.
That is
love
true
it.
love.
Yeah. So while you're telling these funny stories, you mentioned in your email to ask you about the orange beacon of light.
Yes,
is that?
another poop story. I hate again. Everyone's like, man,
We'll keep going with
there's
it.
El Jefe, the poop guy. All the stories involve poop. Okay, I'll embrace the poop guy. Yeah, I think right around that time of the Big Papa, we were doing Rocky Raccoon, which is another race here in the kind of the piney woods of Texas. It's a great race. And I was doing the half marathon. The half marathon was a 6 mile up the hill and then 6 miles down the hill. So I think this was before Big Papa actually. And so I start running, and I've got friends out on the course. They're doing different distances, all kinds of distances going on. And so I'm going along, and I'm, about mile 3, I'm like, man, usually the body shuts down. I feel like something's happening. That's so mile 4, I'm like, okay, I know mile 6 is the aid station, because I'd not had to do the thing on the trail yet, and so I'm thinking porta potty. I'm thinking they gotta. So I passed my friend Steven, and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" I'm like, "Oh man, I think it's a code brown, man. I think something's happening."
Oh,
And
no.
so by this time, I'm about mile 5. I'm like, okay, if I can go one more mile, I know there's an aid station, and I don't know if they're going to have a porta potty, but at least maybe I can go hide in the woods at that point. And so I'm starting to run in, and the aid station's at this top of the hill.
Unknown caller.
So sorry, I never have my phone on.
That's
Weird.
totally good.
So weird. So I'm running, and I can see the aid station at the top of the hill. And I'm like, is that what I think it is? Is that what I think it is? It was an orange beacon of light. It was the most beautiful porta potty you have ever seen in your life. It was like pristine. It like it just come off the production line. It was the most perfect porta potty. So I'm, at that point, here I go, man. I'm cruising. But then I'm thinking in my mind, there's gonna be a line. There's gonna be a line. I'm gonna sit there and cross my leg. No line, nobody in there. I don't think it ever been used before.
Wow.
From then on, porta potties have now become known as the orange beacon of light. So we'll get on the podcast, we'll get people sending me pictures. They're like, hey, I saw a beacon of light on my run, and they'll send me a picture of the porta potty. That is the orange beacon of light story. It was amazing.
That's hilarious. I'm like seeing it in my head, and there's like rays of sun and angels
Exactly.
singing, and
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
oh, that is funny. I think if you're a runner, you've been there. When you hear the angels singing.
Oh yeah. But most of the time there is a very long line, or they are all out of toilet paper. So
Yeah.
that's a very common thing. Anyways, moving on. El Jefe, you have a podcast of your own. We love it. We would highly encourage our listeners to go follow it. The Big Ass Runner podcast. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way. We started it, in 2020, and everyone's sitting around going, what are we going to do? And my running buddy and I we're actually both content marketers. And so we would run together, and we'd have these stories like the orange beacon of light. And we just had these fun experiences, and we thought, could we do a podcast? And also we are podcast consumers, and we love a lot of the trail running podcasts, but they tended to be, at the time, this is back in 2020, usually either for interviewing elite runners or super technical, and we didn't find something that we felt like just hit that everyday runner, like the middle of the pack, back of the pack, just out there trying to balance life, trying to do some great things, but just the everyday runner. And so we decided to start Big Ass Runner. I told the story why Big Ass Runner, the Clydesdale thing, and we started in summer of 2020. and been going ever since. I started with my friend Stephen Pritt. He had to, we were co-hosts, and then he had to back away because he got this sweet promotion at work, and so his
Oh
time
man.
became limited, and so he still pops on the show every once in a while. But yeah, we've been going for, gosh, 2.5 years. I think we dropped episode 145 this morning, and we've added a
Wow.
fun little new element called Coaching Corral, which Coach Melody is a part of, which we just love. But yeah, we're for the everyday runner, our listeners that call themselves the herd, and it's the show that we do is it's a bit of a different show. We model it a little bit after a radio program, so we've got different segments. We have an open, and then segment one, and then what we call shout out and kudos, and that's shout out to someone that may have done something really cool that week. Maybe they completed their first ultra or their first 100, whatever. And then segment two, and early on it was probably more about comedy than it was about anything else. It's kind of evolved over time. We still have hopefully the comedy part, but we've added a little bit more, I think, technical knowledge and information, and we try to strike that balance. And our goal is out for a run that they just can just listen and be entertained and encouraged. That's what kind of our tagline is. We entertain and encourage the everyday runner, and so that's what we're about. And we have a lot of fun, and we've got amazing people. We've always wanted to highlight our listeners, make them the hero. They actually do our open. We have a different listener do our open every week, and we have a couple of segments. One's called Why Run, where we just have our listeners talk about their why they run. We do another one called Inside the Herd, where we just learn about different members of the herd. And so it's a lot of fun. It's been a blessing. We just like you guys, you get to meet people. I get to meet people like you guys through podcasting. It's just been amazing to get to know people all over the world, not even just in the States, all over the world in some cases. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to have stumbled upon that, and that people tend to resonate with it and get to be a part of it.
And it's a fantastic podcast. You do such an awesome job with it, and it's more of a like a talk show than a podcast, which I
Yeah.
like. The talk show format is really fun. The different sound effects and the different segments, and I feel like so it's a little bit unique in that way too. But I feel like yeah, like you said, you're trying to do the comedy and make it entertaining, and it is funny. It's super entertaining. It's like we mentioned, it's like our favorite. Now we always have Big Ass Runner in the podcast, or Big Ass Runner podcast in the background as we're like cleaning our house, and so it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a joy, and like I said, getting to meet people like you guys has been probably the biggest blessing of it. Getting to hear stories, and people, you guys get this too, I'm sure, on social media. People will send me a note like, "Hey, I was listening to the podcast when I was during my run, and it just helped me get through those tough miles," or "You have no idea what it meant for when you said this." And those little nuggets like that just really make it worth it.
You definitely have entertained me a lot. You have some I love your sense of humor, and it's just a lighthearted podcast that, I don't know, it keeps you entertained and it keeps me laughing. I'll just
And
be out there.
you learn
Yeah,
too.
you do learn, but you really got the entertainment part down. So thank you for putting out a great podcast. It really is.
And we also wanted to ask, you recently just started coaching as well, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your coaching? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
I would love to. Yeah, I think where I am in my evolution, if that's the right word, as a trail runner, I've gotten to do a lot of races. I've gotten to be poured into by coaches and other people, by community. I didn't mention one of the really cool things that happened at the Bandera, not at Bandera. One of the cool things that happened at the Black Canyon 100 is my running partner, I mentioned, Steven, had gotten a bunch of our listeners to send in encouraging videos, and my wife played them while we were, well, when she would see me at the cruise station. So I'd sit down, I'd get my drink and change my shoes or whatever. I actually had a right and a left shoe at that point, which is great. And she would play me these videos of people like, "Jeff, you can do it." It's like, it was so cool. And I told Steven afterwards, I said, I didn't, if I had to crawl, I was going to finish, because of the people that were just encouraging me and pouring into me. And I had a coach that helped me cross the finish lines. I know, Melody, you're pouring into your athletes, and that's kind of where I am now. Is I want to give back, and that's one reason we do the aid station at Bandera. But I just want to pour back into, and just anything that I have learned, and clearly a lot about poop, I want to pour back into other people. So yeah, I got my coaching certification a couple of months ago, and I'm building a coaching roster. And my focus is everyday runners. It's not elite. If you're elite, probably can't help you. If you're an everyday runner trying to go, hey, how do I make it to the finish line? That's really my focus. I want to just help, kind of like the podcast, encourage and entertain and give information and build a plan to get you to the finish line healthy and enjoying it and having fun. To me, at the end of the day, we do this to challenge ourselves. We do this for the experience. But if we're not having fun along the way, it's not always fun. But if it's not fun some of the time, we're not having fun as we're doing this. To me, it's like, you kind of lose some of the thing that makes this so amazing. So having fun too is important to me.
Amen. That's awesome. So if people wanted to reach out to you about the podcast or about your coaching, where would be the best place to find you?
bigassrunner.com will take you to our website, and you can learn about the podcast. You can click on coaching and learn about my coaching there. We're also on social media, big_ass_runner. I will say, if you're going to find us on Instagram and you're typing in, don't stop at big ass, because you'll see some things you don't want to see. Keep going, keep typing, big ass runner. And then also on Instagram at Jeff Harrell Yo.
Perfect.
That's
And we'll
awesome.
put all those in the show notes too.
So, Jeff, before we let you go, we got one last question that we ask every one of our guests. What is your top piece of advice for someone who wants to run their first ultra marathon?
Can I cheat? Can I do more than one? Can I
You can give us,
Go for it.
give us your 5-parter. We're ready for it.
Well, I think first, because I'm hearing a lot lately about imposter syndrome and people feeling like, can I do this? Is this something I can do either at my age or my skill level or my fitness level or whatever the case? So I think first of all, you've got to change your mindset a little bit. And I heard something recently, which I love, and it's moving from this idea of can I to how do I? And what can I does is go, it's either a yes, no, can I do it? And there's doubt that's sort of embedded in that question, can I? But when you move to how do I, then you sort of move forward. You start to go, okay, how do I do this? Maybe I need a coach, maybe I need to do this. So you start getting some forward momentum. You start to think about a plan, and you start thinking about a particular race. So I think first of all, you just got to shift your mindset from can I to how do I? Because I think a lot of trail running, it's about mindset. If you think you can do it, I guarantee you'll find a way. You'll find a way. So I think first it's mindset. I think second, and I actually added this since I sent this to you, because I'm like, I didn't talk about why. I think understanding your why is really important. Now, I think your why changes. It can change even race to race or throughout a season or a year. Sometimes it's the same why for a period of time. But when it gets hard and you've got to get out there and lace them up, and if you don't have a really strong why are you doing this, I think it's really easy to not do it. So I think it's mindset. I think it's really figuring out what is your why are you doing this? And then I wish I could take credit for this. I heard it somewhere, but it's this idea of aspiring to the goal. So if your goal is 100K or 50K or 25K or 10K, whatever, I love to aspire. I don't know if you guys do this. I think about, I picture myself crossing the finish line. It's like, how cool is that going to be? Remember the 100K, I was like, I know it's going to be the middle of the night and it's going to be in the middle of nowhere, but I'm going to cross the finish line and it's going to be amazing. And I think that's great, but you can't stop there, because if you stop there, then you miss the process. So I love this idea of aspiring to the goal, but falling in love with the process. Because the process, if you go through the process and you fall in love with it, you really embrace it, you're going to get to that goal, because the process gets you there. If you just aspire and go, then you'll miss the opportunities to train and to learn and to grow and to try things. And so aspire to the goal, fall in love with the process. And then I've talked about this already. I think find a community, and not only find a community, but serve that community. Go in there and figure, and not thinking like, what can I get from this community, but also what can I give to this community? And that might look like going on runs with people and encouraging someone to come along, or having a great conversation, or it could be going to a local race and serving at an aid station. And like you said, Melody, you get that. I want to do it 100K because I saw those 100Kers and they're amazing. They inspire me. But I think that community is so important because, like I mentioned in my story, I would never have even gotten into running. I wouldn't have done that road marathon had it not been for a community that said, hey, you can do this. We've done it. You can do it too. So I think finding community, that's number 4. Number 5 is hire a coach. I'm trying not to be self-serving when I say that, but honestly, I never would have done I would have done the 100K. I think I would have finished it. I probably would not have finished it in time. I think I probably would have missed my cutoff. But the wisdom, the experience, the confidence that they give you, you can just shave a lot of the mistakes off by hiring a coach. And I just think it's so important. And then this is the bonus. This is number 6, have fun. I mentioned that a second ago. If you're not having fun, what's the point? I guess there could be some things, but man, you got to have some fun along the way, because to me, that the joy of it is so, so very important. And so have fun would be my last piece of advice.
Amen. That's great advice. Amen to all of it.
Jeff just gave us the keys to ultra running right there.
If you follow
You
Jeff's
just
advice,
follow these 6 points,
you're set. That's all you need right there.
Like, honestly, that is very good advice, Jeff. So I as you went through that, I could even see, where things, as you say, some of those things where I've come up short at times, and that's why I struggled, through the process and things. So anyways, thank you, Jeff. Thanks for coming on the podcast. We really enjoyed having you on, and we hope that our listeners will find their way over to hear more of you on the Big Ass Runner podcast.
Well, I just want to say again, what an honor to be on Trail to 100. You guys have been amazing. I've loved that we've connected over the last several months, and it truly has been a pleasure to be here. And man, yeah, if you come over to Big Ass Runner, I'll do the same thing. You guys got to tune in to Trail to 100 because it's amazing. Love what you guys are doing.
So big thank you goes out to Jeff Harrell for coming on the podcast. We're honored that he came on. He's got a great podcast, guys. Go check it out.
Seriously, check it out.
It's very entertaining, and he keeps it informative. I get a lot of good laughs out of it as well. So good sense of humor, good guy. Big thank you to him. So takeaways from our conversation with El Jefe. I'll just go first. So Jeff hit on this a few times about having a coach. Now, here on Trail to 100, we're big advocates of not letting like lack of finances or even lack of knowledge or lack of experience stop you from going after what you want. So I'm not saying you have to have a coach, but as for those of you who have been listening, I'm going for my 3rd 100 in a couple months, and I hired a coach to make a plan for me because I didn't do a very good job at listening to what my wife told me to do.
Don't coach family members.
Yes,
we've established that.
Coaching family members gets tricky, especially if it's your spouse.
Yeah.
And I have learned so much from just having this plan made up and having a couple consultations with my coach about what to do and how to train, that it's made this, I'm hitting mileage that I've never hit before, but I'm feeling good. Like
you're killing it.
What
baby.
the heck?
You're killing it.
I ran a 50K this weekend, and almost every time I've run a 50K, I feel wrecked afterwards, and I felt fine, and that was on a 60-mile week. And so it was just like, and with me, that's
you should have seen them. Like when he crossed the finish line, it's like the elites, when you see the elites cross the finish line and they like yawn and then look at their watch and they just are like, oh yeah, and they're like, that was Jacob. He just crossed the finish line. He's like, yeah, that was fun. Like, wasn't even huffing and puffing or anything.
I didn't even want to sit down. Most of the time I cross the finish line, I'm like, give me a seat. I am done standing.
Yeah.
But anyways, I credit a lot of that to hiring a coach, I didn't hire like a weekly coach. I just had him make me a plan, and I had a couple consultations. So it wasn't even, the most expensive plan. It was actually relatively inexpensive. But with what Jeff is saying about coaching, it makes a huge difference, especially if it's your first time, guys. You can do it. We did it. I've done it twice without coaching. But it was
But
hard.
it would have gone a lot
Yes.
smoother if we had a coach. And I feel like we've kind of in our training we've gotten to a point where, we're learning and we're slowly getting better, but I feel like we've kind of gotten to a point where we've kind of plateaued. Like it's just time for some guidance.
Yeah, the process feels expedited with the
Yes.
coach. A little bit smoother, a little bit quicker, less hiccups. You're still going to have the hiccups,
Of course.
but there's a lot less, and you have someone to go to when you have those hiccups.
And here's the thing, I think a lot of people think they have to spend like $500 a month on a coach, and coaching is just for the elites, but it's not. Coaching is for anybody, and it really is not as pricey as a lot of people think. And there's different coaches out there, there's different prices out there. And then like Jacob mentioned, there's different packages. There's the premium package where you meet with your coach once a week, or you can just buy a custom plan, or you can just find a coach and show them your program, say, hey, look, this is the program I made, what suggestions do you have, and maybe just meet with them once a month. Like it really is a lot more accessible and affordable than most people think.
Or just find a really good friend who's willing to give you lots of free advice.
Totally. Go to
That
some running
knows what
groups
they're
and
doing.
find some people
There's
who,
a lot of runners who just want to talk running, and they will do it
For
for
sure.
free all day.
for sure.
So anyways, that was my takeaway. It was almost like a confirmation of like, okay, like you can do it. And guys, don't let it stop you. If you don't have the money, you can learn. It's going to be the school of hard knocks. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to do a lot of research, but you can do it. And that's why this podcast is here, is we're here to help you guys get that knowledge and learn. And I do think a lot of, while things are going a lot more smoothly on round number 3, is this podcast has helped me, because I've been able to interview lots of coaches and talk to them and gain a lot
And
of
just
knowledge
listening to
from that.
other people's experiences, I
Mhm.
think that's the most helpful.
Yep.
Just hearing what other people have done.
Yep.
So my takeaway was community and service. Jeff talked a lot about the ultra running community and the importance of serving the community. And I just feel that so much. I think that's one of the best things about ultra running is just this community. Jacob and I did a race on Saturday. We posted about it on our Instagram. It was the Serengeti race in Tooele. And I met some awesome people. I made some friends. We exchanged phone numbers. We saw people from other races that we haven't seen for a while. I met a couple people that I'm friends with on Instagram, and we met in person. And it just was so fun to be with these people and meet these people. And I did 25K, and I'm at the back of the pack because I'm pregnant and slow right now, which is totally fine. It's all about the experience, right? And I ran with some other back of the packers, and it was just so fun. I was running with 2 people in particular, and we were all talking about how awesome the community is, and how it's like it's not competitive. And I know some people don't like that aspect, but I love the aspect that it's not competitive. It's just you against you, and everyone is there to support you and cheer you on. And it's just such an uplifting, friendly environment. And I feel like generally, in a trail running community and environment, people, they just want to cheer you on, and they just want to be your friend. So, and then service, like you said, go do some aid stations, give back. That's one of the main reasons I got into coaching, was so I could give back. And there's just something so awesome about this community.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate to you here. You
Oh.
say it's not competitive, but I would argue it's one of the most competitive things a person could do.
Okay,
You're
I mean,
competing with yourself.
what I mean by that is kind of like what John Shaw said in a few episodes ago, where in a road running race, it's like you're not going to let the person behind you pass you no matter what. It's everyone is your enemy. But in trail running, if someone's catching up on you, you move over and you let them pass you, and you say, have a nice run.
Because most of the time these distances are so hard and so long that the goal is to finish, and you're competing against yourself to finish, right?
Yeah. I just mean like we're all friends instead of
Yeah.
enemies
Yeah.
on the trail.
Yeah.
generally. I don't know what it's like up there with the
Yeah.
elites on trying to podium. Maybe it's a little different, but from what I know, and from from the elite people that I've talked to, and from the
They all hate each
documentaries and
other.
things, no, like they still just seem like, good for you, like good job for passing me at the end there. And
Good job for passing me. I don't think they say it in those words. I think they say, "Man, you killed it
but
at
they're
the end."
friendly. They're friendly. Moral of the story is just, it's a friendly, uplifting environment, and I love it.
So it's a passive aggressive pass. No, I'm
I
just
mean, some
kidding.
people are probably passive aggressive.
I-
I have ran past some angry people on the trails there. I guess they're not all nice, but way to throw that in there.
All right. Well, a big thank you to Jeff for coming on and sharing with us his knowledge and his experience. And he's just an inspiring, normal dude. Ran his first ultra at the age of 50. That's awesome.
It's so awesome.
It's awesome.
If you liked this episode, share it with someone who you feel like could benefit from it. And we have also started a segment called the Runner's Corner, Runner's Advice Corner. I don't know. We haven't really decided on a name, but we answer your questions. So go to our Instagram, Trail to 100, and ask us whatever question you have about trail running, and we'll do the best we can to answer it for you.
Thank you all, and we will talk to you all next time.
Hey guys, it's Melody here. Thank you so much for listening to Trail. It means so much to us. I'm really excited to tell you about my coaching business, where I help average Joes who are looking for a little bit more out of life do something big to find a little bit more purpose, direction, and meaning. Learn more on my Instagram at The Pine Tree Runner or on my website, melodybateman.biz. Links are in the show notes. I know what it's like to feel stagnant or like something's missing, or like you just want more out of life. I was in the same spot. Jacob and I had just gotten married, and we were both working 9-to-5 jobs, and we just were like, what do we do now? We just wanted something more, and we listened to David Goggins' book, and we decided to sign up for a 50-mile race. And since then, we've done 50s, Jacob's done a couple hundreds, I've done 100, and running has changed our lives. I feel like I always have a goal to work towards. I feel accomplished and proud of myself. I feel like I have learned countless life lessons that have made me a better friend, a better wife, a better daughter, a better person. And I want to give back and help you do the same thing. I'm telling you, running can change your life. If you're ready to jump in and sign up for a race, whether it's 3 miles or 100 miles, I would be honored to help you cross the finish line. If you'd like to learn more or get in contact with me, find me on Instagram at The Pine Tree Runner or contact me through my website, melodybateman.biz. Links are in the show notes. You have so much potential and you are way stronger than you know. Let's find your strength because it's there just waiting to be tapped into.